The Tyranids, gigantic, angry and acidic alien roaches, set out to devour all life, and to adapt to every single thing mankind throws against it, until they overcame whatever destroyed them before. Sounds almost like a Crimson Demon introduction, but I digress. The Tyranids arrive in gigantic interstellar, or rather extragalactic swarms, so-called hive fleets, and once they have set their eyes on a verdant, fertile world somewhere in the Milky Way galaxy, they descend from the sky and devour everything like the most destructive intergalactic locust swarm possible. They eat each animal life form, each plant, each microorganism, and even take most minerals, the oceans, and the very atmosphere with them into their gigantic bioships. Every single thing or tool or ship is made up of living matter, and the Tyranids are also able to force evolutionary adaptation in their various life forms in a matter of days, if not hours. Let's say a planet is very cold, then the Tyranids would equip their bioforms, their soldiers, living tanks and artillery pieces, with extra fat tissue. If the prey world has oceans, the Tyranids would produce aquatic bioforms. If the prey world has a very dense atmosphere, then most of the invading bioforms would be able to fly or float through the dense upper layer of it. And even worse, the Tyranids can analyze and adapt whatever is in the gene pool of their prey. So let's say that the Tyranids decided to feed on a world inhabited by gigantic, angry wasps with an extremely potent poison. The first wave of the Tyranids would be stung and die. The second wave would have armor to avoid being stung. The third would be immune to the poison, and the fourth wave arriving would have reverse engineered the stinger and the wasp's poison, combining them with various other potent poisons and toxins that they already know about, and turned the stinger into a sprayer, and simply made a potent insecticide that will leave the Tyranids unharmed but kill all of the wasps instantly. Then they send out devouring swarm organisms to gobble up all of the biomass before these organisms themselves enter digestive pools. They don't fling the prey, the biomass, into it. They eat the biomass and fling themselves into them. These pools are then pumped upwards by hive ships via so-called capillary towers that connect the surface to the low orbit of a planet, where the Tyranid motherships dwell and feast on the biomass, analyzing whatever genes are present in the goop, and then incorporate them into their own bioforms before the hive ships empty entire oceans and then absorb the entire atmosphere, likely using various chemical compounds to transform water into more compressible matter, and also likely using some sort of chemical reaction to bind the atmosphere, or rather the chemicals in it, into a more solid and less mass, or rather space-needing form, so that it is easier to transport. And they leave only a barren, desolated rock without any mineral wealth or even an atmosphere behind. To make matters worse, all of this happens in mere months. So once the Imperium of Man arrives years later at the planet after maybe receiving a distress call, all they would find is just an empty, barren rock, while the Tyranids now have another entire planet's worth of biomass that they can use to reproduce and build more ships and soldiers. The question then is, how are the Tyranids able to coordinate all of this? Well, they are psychically linked. Basically, the hive mind, the governing body of the Tyranids, is an overwhelming psychic presence in the warp. And the warp is an alternative dimension where demons and other spirits dwell, that is also used for faster-than-light travel. And without the coordination of the hive mind, every single bioform on the planet and space would be just mindless and ferocious animals. This Gestalt consciousness, to put it in Stellaris terms, is the coordinating entity, and its presence is so massive, so huge, that it blocks out other psychic communications, because in the 41st millennium, humanity uses psychically gifted individuals to send messages and pictures via telepathy from one planet to another. This is their way of faster-than-light communications, which is almost completely blocked out by the shadow in the warp. And this shadow in the warp also prevents most ships from leaving the warp and enter back into real space, so that they can't reinforce a planet. And all of these things I just listed were the pleasant parts about these rather cocky roaches, because they also send infiltration forces to other planets way ahead of their invasions. The gene stealers, as they are called, are basically alien from alien, but made 10 times worse. And as the name suggests, these gene stealers will infect humans on the planet, on whichever planet they land, and procreate with human females, as depicted as in many Japanese adult animation videos, and build up more and more gene stealer hybrids, half-human, half-Tyranid lifeforms, who are then controlled by a gene stealer patriarch who dominates and coordinates the mind of all of these newborn creatures with the aid of a localized version of the hive mind. So they are also powerful psykers. And these half-human hybrids will then procreate and make many more of their kind, until they look human enough to begin the infiltration of society on every single level, and take over important government positions in the military, in both the lower and the higher ranks, in order to make it easy enough for the arriving hive fleet, who now homes in on the psychic presence of the gene stealer cult, of the gene stealer patriarch, to devour this entire planet. And I talked about the gene stealer cult, but what exactly makes it a cult? Well, the gene stealers use religious iconography and promises of a savior that will arrive from the stars to redeem them, in order to keep control over the gene stealer hybrids. So once the hive fleet arrives and the gene stealers, who were now birthed by the hundreds, thousands, if not more, have mostly left the planet on escaping vessels so that they could arrive on other planets, on other spaceports, on different vessels, in order to spread and infect more planets, and thus weaken the Imperium of Men from the inside further, and locate new, precious prey. And these half-human, half-gene stealer hybrids are actually in the belief that even once the hive fleet descends upon a planet, once they see nothing but a mass of acidic forms of claws, teeth, and chitin, that their savior have finally arrived. And even mothers who give birth to pure strain, unaltered gene stealers to this alien horror will see these alien monsters as sweet and adorable little kids. And once all of this happens and the Tyranid invasion begins, the gene stealer cult will fight together with the Tyranids against the population of the planet. And only when the planet is subdued, some, and I stress this again, some might snap out of this enthralled state and realize what they have done, before the gene stealer cultists are then devoured as well. This is the true horror of these aliens in Warhammer 40k. And now let's make it worse by adding my own little theory on top of all of this. Okay, here's my theory. I say the gene stealer cult is completely right. Yes, you heard me. Despite everything I just have described, I truly believe that the gene stealer cultists are 100% right, spot on the money, and that this hive fleet is, in a sense, truly their savior. For here's the thing, life in the Imperium of Men in the 41st millennium is hell, to put it mildly. Most people live in hive cities, work 12 to 18 hours a day, and live short, miserable, and very, very poor lives, while the Hive Fleet might offer immortal peace, tranquility, and true brotherhood. Here's why I'm thinking this. The Tyranids harvest everything from animals and plant and various other life forms, down to microorganisms, down to the minerals in the planet's crust, down to the ores, the oceans, and even the very atmosphere, and only stop digging when the concentration of biomass within the soil within a planet is so low that they would expand more energy than they would receive from harvesting it. So, would the Tyranids really leave souls behind? Think about it. The Tyranids have a gigantic psychic presence in the warp, enough to close warp rifts and banish demons back into the warp by their mere presence. And it takes a very considerable effort for chaos, for demons, to breach this shadow in the warp and engage the Tyranids directly. Who also have created, by the way, a specific anti-demon fleet set out to destroy chaos and warp creatures themselves. So where does this psychic presence even come from? Well, we know that the stronger the soul is, the brighter it shines in the warp, and the more souls are gathered into one single place, the brighter they shine as well. That's also why you can see the Astronomicon, the Emperor's guiding beacon of light that navigators use to navigate the warp through most of the galaxy, with the exception of the very fringes. So again, where does all of this psychic might to block it out actually comes from? And I believe it comes from the absorbed souls. Basically, the shadow in the warp, the hive mind, might be the sum total of all absorbed souls connected to each other. And this would also explain why these Tyranid life forms we actually see, the Gorns and Gargoyles, are just reverting to mindless and animalistic behavior if the link between the hive mind and them is severed. Why synaptic creatures that link these lesser creatures together and connect them to the hive mind are required. Because they are nothing more than drones, piloted via psychic energy, while synaptic creatures that link these creatures, these lesser beings together, and basically repeat and strengthen the signal from the hive mind are even required, because they are nothing more than drones, piloted via psychic signals instead of, let's say, an internet connection, and a connection to the hive mind is therefore required for the collected souls within the hive mind to control them. Souls within the hive mind interconnect to each other and coordinate units, like in a real-time strategy game. I mean, the organization is important. They will organize larger units or groups of larger units, or some advanced units in very small groups, or just as an individual. I mean, think of Empire Earth or of Age of Empires, StarCraft, Total Annihilation, or Beyond All Reason, and you will know what I'm talking about. The basic units, they can attack, defend, they can patrol, or guard things, but the input of a player is required to coordinate them effectively, to produce units, to coordinate front lines. And the bioengineering, or even the entire hive fleet, or rather hive fleets, since it seems that all of these Tyranid life forms are part of one greater consciousness, set out to devour the galaxy, are in desperate need of coordination, and the souls fulfill this very purpose. So basically, let's assume that Asuka from Neon Genesis Evangelion is part of a Genestealer cult, or just gets eaten up by the Tyranids. Fan art aside, she now is part, as in her soul is part of the hive mind, and rather than piloting a gigantic robot from the inside, like she does in Evangelion, her consciousness will be simply linked to a particularly large and very, very aggressive bioform creature, like for example a hive titan. Next time, the hive fleet engages an enemy in ground combat. This would also explain why the Tyranids are so adaptable, because the people they had fought and fed upon are now part of the very hive mind, and thus can share their life experiences, their knowledge and wisdom with the greater hive mind. So what I'm saying is that the Tyranids are controlled by the internet. And with that said, I say thank you very much for watching, and please let me know if you want to see more Warhammer 40k lore and theories. And with that said, I wish you a very nice day.